Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm Callan, this is Matt,
Hello.
and this is Evan.
Hello, everyone.
It'll be a two-parter today, Matt. Introduce both for me, please.
Okay, we are talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender, Book 3, Episodes 10 and 11. They're the Day of Black Sun, Parts 1 and 2, titled The Invasion and the Eclipse. But we're talking about it all together because it's one story, really.
It's essentially the mid-season finale of the season.
And with the exception of a few points we'll touch on in a second, the first episode is essentially just, isn't the battle cool? So, there's not too much to talk about without including the second part by design.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the season did air at two different times of the year, and this was like the cutoff point, after this one.
I think so, yeah.
Sure.
It was because designed as a almost semi-finale, which I think was worked quite well. Yeah, no, the major thing to start off with this then is the intro to the invasion and how it's Sokka's plan coming together. He's built up to this. He's done a lot of work for it, and is a significant part of it in terms of character agency, as a part of success.
He gets actually a lot of spotlight at these episodes, which is really nice to see.
I did not. I mean, I didn't watch this episode just today, so maybe I'm just spacing it. But he invented submarines.
Yes, he did. He invented submarines
off camera. He gave them the design and they approved it from there.
Among other things,
which is a big contribution to the entire world, which you can all thank Sokka for, which is very interesting. Little fun fact there.
His out of the box thinking created the hot air balloon and the submarine, and God knows what else is included.
Which has always been like one of the best aspects I think of Sokka as a character, is because even though like he presents as like this goofball character, obviously he's actually when he has his head in the game, he's actually like on it. Like he's actually like pretty intelligent. In fact, he actually gets the gang out of like several jams throughout the course of this two-parter in various ways, which is really nice to see. You have that sort of leadership role. You really see that emerge in these two episodes specifically. That'll obviously carry on later in the season when we get to the final battle.
Yeah, and it kind of starts off with the stumbling of the fact that he's not experienced. He's not a public speaker. All of this planning has been put in place, and the setup for it has obviously been clear throughout the entirety of the show, particularly from this season, leading to the start of it, and up to this point, it's been built up that he's a huge part of this, which is nice to see, because while it's not particularly realistic, obviously, because he's a child, it's still from a narrative point of view, he's got the agency of the character. He's a part of it. He's not just a passenger going along for the ride and being tagged on by the adults, who've been doing
it's really okay. It's just it's the nature of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the only reason the Fire Nation is even prepared for this is because Azula was 14, overheard. She talked to the Earth King, who stupidly just spewed all his plans to her. And she's good to know.
Exactly, yeah. But this is kind of like, despite all of that, he still is new, he still is young, and he stumbles with the public speaking. He messes up the speech to kind of rally the troops, and his dad has to step in. I like that touch because it adds a little bit of a more of a realistic and heartfelt dynamic to that as the kind of starting point for what he manages to pull off later on. He's a kind of in the moment, in the thick of it guy, rather than a up front in front of a crowd until it it matters when we get to that point in the battle. So I thought it was a good idea. It played well for me, and it's very relatable as well.
Yeah.
And
that being said, I really like that they don't just it's not just a cheap joke, and they don't dwell on it. In fact, Aang actually comforts him later when he actually is showing his regret about messing up the speech, which that little interaction in particular felt particularly human to me, if you know what I mean. Like he wasn't all like, oh, Sokka, you're such an idiot or anything like that. Like he's actually like, hey, you know what you're doing. Everyone has trouble with this. It doesn't matter what you do here. It's all about what happens on the battlefield, which is very realistic and obviously makes sense for this situation. So that's nice to see.
Yeah, and it's Sokka aspiring to be his dad as well. Is that my dad, isn't bad at it. He's great. And, it's something for him to live up to and reach that point later on in the episode and indeed to the season. But yeah, that's pretty much the...
Also, can I just say this one thing? Aang cuts his hair off.
Oh yeah, I wish
he uses a straight razor.
I wish it was that easy.
That's intense.
I wish, if only it was that simple. Just go done.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it shows him doing that back in somewhere in Bossing Say.
I envy that.
Because the idea is that he does it every day, like in real life, monks shave their head every day. But any comments about the other folks that showed up, because this is very much like a reunion kind of episode,
Blast from
where
the
everybody that
past.
we've ever met
Yeah.
turns up, except for the most important people, like Boomy, Piandao, and like the White
Yeah.
Lotus knows that this is stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they
Or
know it's the
yeah.
mid-season, so they're holding
Yeah.
back.
them
We'll
try
be
it
there
anyway.
for the real
Yeah.
finale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
White Lotus knows what's up, but yeah, no, it's that obviously slight plot hole aside. The important part is, of course, that Haru with his mustache turned up as specified by Sokka in his speech.
Oh, terrible! Yeah, also looks awful. Like he should really get rid of that.
But it was nice to see
But-
the characters return. It was nice to see kind of a bit of a continuation from even book one. I mean, and like I said, with Haru and his father.
Oh yeah, it was
a
like,
nice
hey,
little
remember
thing,
us?
yeah.
I wish that the kid in the wheelchair, whose name I literally can't remember, when he's all, hey Aang, we brought you a new glider, I wish he had said thanks. Like I couldn't remember his name, because I was literally going, oh, that's that guy. I don't remember him. I mean, I do, but I don't remember his name.
Exactly. But it was cool to have the. I mean, even the guy, the dad's called the Mechanist, right? The Sokka calls him that.
Don't even, yeah, sure. Mhm.
But I like the fact that he gets the stuff from them though as well. It's not just like let's slap one together. It makes sense that someone who's mechanically inclined, specifically around the airbending temple, that they find.
It's like that guy.
Cool.
He figured out that, which makes sense because he lived in the air temple. But he figured that out, but not the submarines. Like that was the 15-year-old kid who.
I mean, he built them. To be fair, it was the concept was from Sokka, but he built the fine minutiae of it. So there's that going for it. But yeah, aside from the prep for the invasion there, and obviously the character work on Sokka, it's the Katara and Aang kiss really that comes up next as the kind of major talking point. The first time that he has actually properly kissed her, takes her by surprise. It's a moment of courage from him, etc.
Just a trifle awkward, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, as we said before,
which is clearly intentional.
Yeah, well, just even if it wasn't intentionally awkward in that moment, it's awkward because, as we said before, it's Aang. It's a young kid. Yeah. We don't really particularly care about his romance, but because it's a kid's show.
Let's be real. Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Were any of us watching like totally smooth during our first kiss when we were 13? I doubt
no,
it.
precisely.
Well, no, but yeah, I mean, I'm not criticizing it. It's just the fact of the matter; it's a bit awkward. But and
it leads into what comes later, even though it's not particularly touched upon for the most part, for a good while. But that makes sense again, given the pressing matters and stuff. But yeah, gives the Aang Katara lovers a bit of something, which is but as we said, has been lacking for the most part.
Which leads us into the invasion proper.
Which, by the way, they didn't have to put the amount of creativity and thinking into this that they did, and I really appreciate it for it. We can't go on about too much. It's just really cool to see. But the creativity of the ship designs, the creativity of the defenses, the ideas that were being put in place for what the Fire Nation were doing to defend against them, and what the invasion were doing to attack. Little beats like the tanks and the way they integrate bending into the technology and all of that stuff. It was all very well executed. It wasn't just they run up a beach D-Day style and storm the palace. It could have been a very one note, and they really spent the time and, as we said before, the recording the money on this sequence.
Yeah.
Well, one thing the show always did really well for the time it was made was integrate CGI into traditional animation as well. So like it wasn't overly, just even in like.
It's not
even
distracting.
things I love. Yeah, even in things I love like Justice League, it looks a little off. You know what I mean? Whenever they've got like a CGI plane or something going on, it looks a little disconnected from what's going. And it's pretty good there. It's not terrible, but and then there's plenty other stuff where it is just like, oh man, the technology really wasn't there. The integration.
They were so excited about it though at the time. It's like, oh, look what we can do with this. Doesn't this look cool, kids? And it didn't quite hold up. But with this one in particular, with Avatar, with the possible exception of the blimps at the very finale, where it gets a bit iffy at some points, they do integrate the CGI very well. They do it subtly. They don't do like big bombastic moves with it. They just kind of use it to supplement the animation and allow them to do kind of larger scale stuff on screen without having to just physically draw every single little minute detail. There's always one bit that I found amusing when they have the ship on the hook, or the fish on the hook, literally. That comes up and being lifted up by the crane in the shot of the ballista, and then it just kind of drops, and then after like a second it goes and back to normal, back and straight into the formation. The motion from it transitioning from being dropped to moving back in with the group, I always just find amusing because it's right there with the others. It's like it hasn't even been delayed. It was just but it's a cool idea with the ballista shot in the first place though. Even the way they sealed up the water with the water
with the little swamp bender freezing it, and
it's
also
cool.
Katara kind of helping with cutting it free. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
But
Yeah,
as-
all of
but,
it's
but,
cool.
but again, yeah, that's all we can
yeah,
really say.
yeah.
You know, it's
It's just fighting and fighting and fighting
Yeah,
for like the last
good-
several minutes of the episode. Good fighting, but it's like, what's there to really comment on?
yeah,
It makes sense.
good
really
good
they had to
choreography, good
find
animation,
creative ways.
Yeah.
Creative ways of dealing with it all without showing anybody dying, especially because it's a kid show. You know,
Lots of
so that's
tanks
really a lot
flipping
of
over,
elements.
and you see them
Yeah.
scrambling
Yeah.
out the hatches, and
Yeah, it's like what can we do instead? Well, we need some destruction. How can we make
Yeah.
that cool? Okay, here we go.
yeah, it's
You know,
well
that's
done.
kind of it.
And it
Yeah.
does pay, you know, because this isn't exactly the main focus point of the invasion. That comes with the second half, obviously. But they do spend the time thinking up ways of integrating character into the action. So they have the injury with the dad, Sokka having to step up and kind of take charge of the invasion, having his kind of redeeming moment for himself after the speech failure.
Great moment.
Yeah, and it feels natural as well. Obviously, it's not really realistic, a kid taking charge like that way. Although I suppose in history it kind of is. But it plays well. It doesn't feel forced or cheesy. You know, it feels earned in the moment, however swiftly it happened, and it doesn't kind of sit on it. You know, the camera pans away as they go on for the charge, and it's just a kind of a cool piece of action, same as they usually do with it. So, all very effective for me.
And the fact that like the soldiers are just like willing just to fall in line with it like so immediately and just follow his lead without there being, because again, that's another opportunity where they could have snuck in like a cheap joke or something like, why are we following a kid? Like, no, they don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all played very straight, which is really nice.
Yeah, and small thing, but I like that his dad comes back later on as well. He's not just written off screen and never turns up until the finale. He's actually, you know, he limps back into the field and kind of helps out with some of the planning and discussion and stuff. He's still part of the invasion. He's just been sidelined a bit, so it wasn't like a complete just cut off and okay, now Sokka can take the spotlight. It was well done. But that's pretty much everything for the first part, right?
It really is like a condensed discussion. You know,
you get Aang in the city, the main city.
Yeah.
He realizes it's completely abandoned, including, you know, he goes to the Fire Lord's throne and absolutely nobody's there, and he's obviously very dejected about that.
I do like the shout
also,
there with the like Fire Lord Ozai, where are you? That's a really cool moment. It's very dramatic. It works well with like what's going on and the build up to it, because you understand his frustration and the kind of shock at the moment. We've just had an entire pretty crap episode building up his tension and worries about it. And then it's like, oh, okay, all for nothing. He's gone.
Yeah, and all throughout, in sort of the disconnected from the battle, there have been those perspectives of like Iroh getting ready to leave and talking to was her name Ming, the side character who was never a thing. Like I mean, she was a nice presence, but I kind of wish she had been like around a little bit since they have that moment.
Yeah.
She's like introduced to have that moment, and she's voiced by one of the Williams sisters, tennis stars. And I think that was just because she enjoyed the show. Like she just like, I want to be on it. You know?
I honestly didn't know that.
A very famous athlete, you know, playing such a bit role like that, you know, it's just kind of funny. I wish she had been around a little bit more.
I noticed that the voice was awesome, but I never knew it was played by anyone in particular. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that she should have been more integrated into that kind of little mini story, because we've had so many shots go back to Iroh, including with the arsehole guard that just kind of spits on him and just doesn't respect him at all. So having her be
that
there,
guy really needs a life, by the way. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? You know, like this is how you're spending your time.
You used to be a general, our mightiest general. Look at you now. You know, having her as that presence then would have been a nice touch to kind of make her less of a hint of what he's going to do in the episode. You know,
and I love the warning he gives her. Like, you know,
yes,
you know, like you seem ill. You should probably take the afternoon off. It's like, I feel fine. Trust me, you don't want to be here during the afternoon.
It's better that you're not here. And she's like, okay,
which is
I'm gone.
Which is so interesting, because it's like it's such a different like tone for Iroh. Like you're just not used to him being like that, so it really comes off as like, okay, this is serious because he's acting this way, you know. So I like how that's presented.
This is a jumping ahead a little bit, because it's not really revealed that he's gone until the end of the next episode. But are they implying that he left during the eclipse? Like
presumably,
when the firebending was off, or are they saying that he I don't see how they could of the chaos this day? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
To me, I was imagining that he burst out.
The bars are fucking
I mean, he is Gorilla Iroh after all that exercise.
That's a bit excessive.
I know. But the way I always visualize it is he bursts out and then uses the fact that no one can bend at him as the escape point after that point. So, you know,
but how does he burst out?
But before the eclipse starts. So the eclipse starts
right before,
like
when he knows,
and then as it's going off. I mean, we've always said before he's spiritually connected. I think it makes sense. As an idea.
Ozai can tell when it's about to come back on. So you know, Iroh. You know, like you know. But so I buy that. But because even like the hippo, I'm like, he's not bending those bars like that. You know what I mean? Like nobody
Also,
aside from Toph is doing that.
Also, by the way, why is like the security for a powerful firebender just a cage? Like we see later on that they have like this like freezing unit thing to like specifically for firebenders. Like why are you not doing that with him?
I'm pretty sure the only reason he isn't executed is because kid show. I mean, why are none of these people just executed? They all
that too,
and he's the Fire Lord's brother as well. So it's there's that quasi connection.
But again, like I get that, but the fact that we later very explicitly see how Fire Nation prisons work with other firebenders, it's like, huh?
Zuko pulled some strings. Zuko pulled some strings, and it's easy hand waving.
I think it.
But no one imagines that Iroh could bust out of just I don't know.
I think it is supposed to be that the boiling rock is like a unique one, like so they're not all like that. But yeah, they do just throw everyone.
Okay, even
in
if that's not the case, it's freaking Iroh.
I know. Put him in that one. But
I don't know.
But yeah, no, the main meat of the I was finale, but the half finale, mid-season finale, is happening in part 2, where we get all of the fun stuff, where it kind of focuses back in on the gang and the small elite team, etc., or small elite team of 1 at this stage. Where are May and Ty Lee in all this? Actually, I hadn't thought about that.
May doesn't give a fuck. And
you'd think that they'd be very present alongside the Dai Li in this episode, wouldn't
you? We don't see them.
Never occurred to me.
She just gets a nod from Zuko, and that's it.
I've always said that those two don't have enough to do this season. Because like even okay, speaking of boiling rock, they have their moment, and they don't do anything during the actual finale. You would think that after they have a turning point like that, that you would use them somehow in the big finale, but they're not. They just show up at the end and party.
They're very absent.
Yeah.
So so part 2 starts. We get fighting and more planning. We get a little break off between Aang, Sokka, and Toph. Raiding the volcano because they find underground catacombs and whatnot in order to make it to the lair.
By the way,
to the point where they actually go through an actual volcano.
Yeah, I just want to. I laugh every time that Sokka's like, I am so glad we added you to the group because there are so many obstacles that they hit, not just in this but in the finale as well, where they'd be completely screwed if they didn't specifically have the one person in the world who could invent metal bending with them. It was just it's amusing that they note that.
And she's no good for most of this. You need an airbender. Like, no one but the Avatar could do this alone. Period. That's also a nice touch as well.
Granted, if we're adhering to real world physics, they should have been poisoned by the volcano air like within a minute, but they don't even acknowledge that because they're literally like right there. It's like,
everyone's got to just let that go. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like you can't even like exist in in so many of the environments that they find themselves into for very long, let alone be in fighting shape and all that. And also they take a lot of liberties with even just things like how acrobatic Azula is. I don't care how good you are.
Yeah, you're not doing how good you are.
No. Which before we get to that, I loved the whole like little interaction with the dude who's just walking and whistling.
Well, that technically that guy may not have even been a traitor.
Yeah, I got the impression
he knows Ozai's not in there.
Yeah, I got the impression he was put there to get them on the wrong track, or at least potentially do so. Because he does give the exact details to where Ozai is.
Also, really small touch. I love that Aang actually thanks him.
Yeah. Thank you. But yeah, we get the fight with Azula, which is very cool. There's a lot of cool choreography and particularly with the Dai Li, the bending that goes into that. I like how
that's a very well done reveal.
Yeah.
They don't forecast that they're there, although it does mean that she said, "Okay, guys."
I know.
Let's be really
it's like, okay, get up there in the rafters and
I'll leave the time. I'll leave the timing to you, but I'll give you a hint, and you can just come in when you think it's appropriate.
You guys know how to be drama. I've seen it. You guys are dramatic. Just do your thing.
That's always the question when you have a moment like this, even a well done one, which this is, as you say. It's always that idea of okay, you just stand in the shadows over there, and you can come out and at the appropriate time. So, oh god.
But we get some really impressive Earth. Bending with the Dai Li.
They must be, by the way, the most bored people on the planet. They've been waiting for the invasion for like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah,
got nothing to do until that one day. Let's play cards. You know what I mean? They've just been hanging out. She says she brought them with her. But anyway, the choreography is great. The animation quality is really good. The only thing I hate about this, it's always annoyed me, is that Aang doesn't use his super fast running to just end her. Like, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to catch up to her. It's just pure plot convenience.
What were we talking about
However-
recently, Matt? with the
don't
villain
know.
always being able to escape when needed.
I know, but this especially because he's
I
got
know.
the one set of powers where
I know.
we've seen him like just run at super speeds. You know what I mean?
Right.
Many times, and he's like, "I can't get her." It's like, why? Why not?
Yeah,
there's no reason. why you
Well, just
can't.
the idea of Toph not being able to do exactly what she does later on. It's just like move a hand and hold up your trap.
I mean, again, because I can hand wave this because they're good guys, but she can crush Azula. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, physically crush her if she really had to, or destroy her foot at least. You know what I mean? So she can't get away. Like, there's no reason why, if it wasn't a more mature rated show, that she couldn't just end this at the beginning.
Yeah. So she's running away, but it's actually
Before that, I want to talk about how I love the specific sequence where Aang bursts through the rock wall. He like lets go of his staff. He attacks her to the point where he obliterates the stone throne behind her with air. And also got rid of one of the Dai Li in the process. It's one of the slickest Aang maneuvers, even though he doesn't get her. Like, I rewind that bit 3 or 4 times every time. It's one of the best animated bits in the show for me. And him being like really proactive, even though he's too slow because plot convenience.
Yeah.
That shows mastery that he doesn't usually employ. I mean, he's always great, but he's usually kind of fucking around, you know.
Yeah, it's the urgency and the seriousness of the story.
Yeah.
He knows how important this moment is, what the time frame they're working with is, you know. So it's cool, and I like that the humor beat as well when Azula starts flying out and Sokka's like, "What?" Because Azula's just sort of staring him in the face.
Yeah,
He
he
goes,
was totally useless.
he was like, but
Yeah.
we do get the character moment of him then, because it's kind of been the other two, Aang flying
wait a
over the
minute.
lava, Aang and Toph opening the metal door, both of them fighting Azula, and then he gets the whole guys stop. This isn't tactical.
I know,
She's trying.
but
she's clearly leading us away on purpose to buy time.
I feel like that could have probably happened whether he'd been there or not. You know what I mean? It's like he is totally useless in terms of anything he.
Yeah.
Especially considering he then, despite his own awareness, is the one
exactly.
who falls.
Yeah.
But again, I like it because it's very human. It's very soccer. It's not like it's a slip up and just pointless. It's obviously annoying and
it's
frustrating.
irony.
Yeah.
But it is
specifically. So like you understand how he could react that way in that moment.
Yeah.
Also, we didn't mention this, but we also find out that Azula can override Toph's ability to detect liars,
which is very Azula.
I mean,
she's borderline sociopathic.
It makes sense. Like
not particularly borderline.
Yeah. I mean, there are instances in real life of people being able to fool lie detectors. So
many people.
I mean, but yeah, specifically this is proof that she is a sociopath. And also, again, attempted murder. Like coming up, you know. So you know, it's a great sequence aside from the plot convenience stuff. The
Eclipse is, you know, goes on, and it's. Oh, by the way, just small touch. I really appreciate the fact that when the eclipse happens, all the soldiers in the city they put on special glasses.
Oh, God.
I don't know. Like,
I
I'm
found
just
that
saying
hilarious.
No, but that little detail
Everyone,
makes
put
sense.
on your eclipse glasses. I agree with what you're saying. It does fit, but it's comically hilarious.
I would have thought that you would have loved that. That's such a Callan.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's
like that's weird to me that you're not like all on board with that. But
no,
I
you're
like
right.
that little detail.
It is cool, and they put the thought into it, and the fact that the enemy didn't as well. They
also
didn't have the mechanists on side. You know, I like that touch. You're right. It is funny, like the way, specifically the fact they hold on the shot is like the eclipse is coming. Everyone, put on your eclipse glasses.
They don't actually say that, but
I'm pretty sure he does. I'm pretty sure he says something along that lines. It's that blatant.
There's a line of some sort. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Right. But I also like how a lot of the Fire Nation people have like weaponry because they know it's about to turn off, like even if they are benders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's going to be a time slot here.
Establish their technological advantage.
Although the information doesn't appear to have been filtered down to all of them because they're still trying to, fight back and immediately surrender.
They were, lieutenant, junior grade. They don't know. They don't need to know. But anyway, the other thing I liked about the Azula thing is that she's using. It makes sense why she made friends. I'm using it loosely here with May and Tylee because they had skills that she could learn from because that's what she employs throughout. So it's really cool the prep work there as well, and explaining some of how again the physics and the gravity that she defies, whatever. But it explains why she is as acrobatic as she is in that way. She's clearly been practicing with Ty Lee, and she uses one of May's shuriken things at the end when she's about to kill Sokka.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then in the middle of all this, the meat of all this is really Zuko, who's been breaking up with his girlfriend via a shitty
Scroll.
letter. Yeah, and exiting his room in just as in the same exact framing as his mother did, because he's dramatic like that.
Yeah, he likes to be on point.
Even though there's no one there to see it, you know.
Yes.
But yeah, so he's confronting his dad in the super secret bunker. This is really what all of this is built up to. It's sort of the point of the episode. Nobody's talk other than me.
It's just it's the
Well,
it's one of those
culmination
moments
just
that
like all this. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, well, no, it's what you're saying. It's the culmination. It's this scene alone in a vacuum is fantastic. It's pretty much perfectly executed just by itself. But the fact, and it's not the first time I'm going to say this in the season, but the fact that the build up is as strong as it has been for Zuko, specifically tied to the character of his father and how connected the two are in all of the ways that have shaped Zuko to be the character that we have seen him progress as. You know, this is a culminating moment that you do not see in every show. It's one of the reasons that Avatar is so great. And linchpin is Zuko, as we've always said. He has that this revelatory moment and actually confronts the person who has lorded over him and been a shadow over his entire life, and every bad thing that's ever happened to him pretty much has been connected to him, and how Zuko is trying to chase approval. He's actively talking and confronting. It's not even before the fight, because the fight is the least important part for me. It's just the courage and bravery of standing up and talking to your parental figure, this way. It's not an easy thing. So many children are going to have related to this moment for a plethora of reasons. And I think it really carried through what people kind of wanted it to.
Yeah, the only downside to any of this is nothing to do with this scene. It's just the fact that Ozai, the execution of him overall is that he is so kind of one-dimensional, and all the pieces are there that he doesn't need to be. It's always kind of annoyed me how when he talks about how his dad told him to kill Zuko, he just goes, and I was going to. There's no
hesitation.
No hesitation, no human instinct there. And they established that he wasn't always this way. It's
we never see really that turn.
Lost opportunity.
Yeah,
lost opportunity.
Yeah. He lacks subtlety.
Because there's a difference between being like complete sociopath and just being disconnected.
And not having the why of that disconnect is the biggest weakness. We don't see what put him on that path. He doesn't have to have, obviously it would have been great if he did have the human element in the present, but he doesn't have to have that. But just the idea of why he doesn't anymore would have been good. He lacks the kind of the subtle gradation that the other characters have in the show, and it really stands out.
The thing that's teed up for it in here is that his dad was exactly the same way, or not far removed. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that they could have played with that. It's only an implication that a viewer can get from like the whole picture. He doesn't necessarily recognize it about himself. Yeah. I would like for one of them at least to point that out. Yeah. Or for Iroh to point it out at some other point, because there was never an interaction between him and Iroh.
Which is criminal. We needed to have that at some point.
We needed a line like, we needed something like, Ozai being like, oh, I said the same thing to my father when I was your age, but unlike you, I learned something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. It is a good moment, and it's powerful on its own. It's not a bad thing, but because of how
it's his strongest scene as well, despite all the fact that he's the weakest part.
Yeah,
of it. This is his strongest scene, particularly because
Mark Hamill's performance in this. Yeah, Mark Hamill's performance, like in this scene, I thought was definitely the best of the character, because he kind of has that tonal balance between trying to keep calm and collected, but he's able to like just get like instantly fiery just on a turn of a dime, and I really enjoy that. And then he could go back to it instantly too, and it doesn't feel like it's awkward.
There's a coldness to it as well. He's not just there's more content in this, so he's been cold elsewhere obviously, but it's not a one-liner or a flashback. He's got something to say, and the way he says it, I mean, even just like, don't you want to know what happened to your mother, like that.
It is very.
We get more information about that.
Yeah, it's very the way that all of this is framed, because that's intercut with Sokka interrogating, for want of a better term, Azula, because he doesn't get anywhere there. Her face is framed exactly. There's that fading shot where it fades from her face into his. She got their attention by doing the exact same thing. Oh, don't you want to know about Zuki? Don't you
going
want to
back
know
to
what happened
that
to your mother? And
time old
there's
parallel
something.
between the two, Zuko and Aang.
Yeah. Now she's wasting time, and so is he, but he's doing so with a more direct purpose. There's a stay here so I can kill you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and you can see she's just stay here until the firebending's back on and then do whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like that's where she is. He's a little bit more motivated, where it's like, I want to kill you right now.
Yeah.
And I think that there's
it's kind of like the classic, like, oh, you think you're so tough? Okay, prove it. That sort of thing.
Right. But there's an element of this is subtle, like aside from the which it contrasts the way we're talking about his motivations, which are not very subtle. I want the throne and I'll do anything to get it, whatever. But the fact that you can tell he is listening to what Zuko is saying, but he's only waiting for him to stop talking. He is not. There's nothing he's got just enough. Like, I understand, but like the language of what you're saying, I don't relate to any of it. And you're dead to me, and soon you're going to be literally dead. Yeah.
To me.
There's that shot where it's just his eyes, and Zuko's going on and blah blah about this and that, and this is the truth of things, and he's just blinking slowly, like he's not actually taking in any of this meaning. He understands the language. He does not understand the meaning.
Words are just bouncing off without any effect.
And the fact that Zuko knows that he's not doing this to have any kind of effect on his father. He's doing it for himself. He's doing it for the fact that he's taken the choice to confront him. The specter that's always hung over him, throughout this entire journey, his entire life, but particularly the journey that we've watched on the show. And it pays off all of the emotional struggles and baggage that we've seen him trawling through up to this point. Culminating, of course, in the spectacular, easily the best use of lightning in the show, the spectacular instantaneous display of "I'm going to kill you now" from his father, that he, obviously with the payoff to Iroh and the connection to his uncle, redirects and sends flying back. I love that it's Iroh's technique and Iroh's lessons and Iroh's teachings that save him in this moment, both literally and figuratively. It's his connection to his uncle, who he acknowledges has been more of a father to him than Ozai ever has, that gets him through this, literally, and again figuratively. It's poetry in motion, to use the phrase.
Because Ozai is obviously going to recognize that technique, from Iroh.
I don't think he did.
Yeah, I was surprised. Yeah, because he's like, wow.
Yeah, because
I don't know. I always kind of interpreted it, because he has like that stern look at the end, and I always interpreted it as like, oh, he taught him that too, or something like that. Because he was clearly
I think he
not
must be able to
expecting
surmise
block
that that's
it.
what happened.
Yeah.
But I think I don't think.
I'm not saying he didn't there was no surprise at all, because he clearly was surprised by Zuko being able to do that.
I'm not saying that. I the way that when Iroh first talks about it, he says this specifically is something I can show you that even Azula doesn't know. To me, it's like his carefully guarded secret. I don't think anybody, aside from him and Zuko at that time, know about it. And it's not until Zuko teaches it to Aang. I think at that time, those are the only three people. And to me, I'm aware, I don't read the comics really. At some point, Azula gets it, even though she's like crazy town and been in prison and never had to practice. You know what I mean? She just kind of gets it to up her game or whatever, to make her more powerful again. And I don't really, and those comics also kind of ruined Zuko's mother as a character for me, from what I recall. But yeah, I feel like he doesn't. He's also really surprised when Aang can do it, like later on. You know what I mean? During the final result. And again, it's not a firebending technique, or it is, but it was built specifically off waterbending. So it's not the kind of thing he would have thought to look for or respected, really, because he's very much that sort of conqueror, imperial, arrogant sort.
Again, another layer of the whole dynamic between him, Iroh, and how they relate to Zuko. It's yin and yang right in front of your face.
This does have the his best line though is the ways of tea and failure, because that's what he thinks of his brother, which I think is a
Right.
very it's not
Telling.
even entirely wrong if you think
Mm.
about what early Iroh was like in the show, where he's just kind of doing nothing. I mean, he's along for the ride to protect Zuko specifically, but he is a bit of a goofball, you know what I mean, and kind of missing the point often of like what is in terms of like goal orientation. He's often La La Land, really. So it's easy for me to buy that Ozai has ripped this guy off. You know, he does not regard him.
Absolutely.
Like I'm
Yeah.
sure that he's aware of his prowess and would take him seriously in a battle. He's not that fucking stupid. You'd have to be like stone cold nuts, you know what I mean,
Mm.
to think that like Iroh's, you know, something you can sneer at. And he's close to that, but he's not quite that, you know. But yeah, I like that. I've always liked that line. It's the one funny thing he says in the whole show, and
Mm.
it also without
Mhm.
breaking his, you know, shitty,
Character.
yeah, like awful, horrible, despot character.
Mm.
You can kind of see where Azula gets it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's understating it.
Mm.
Yeah.
And yeah,
But
so Stock Robert says the Where's Suki moment with Azula to set that up later on, that he's, you know, aware that she's been taken and needs to be picked up later. I love Azula's reaction when the firebending does come back on as well, and simultaneously to the father. So they hear the lightning explosion. She's like, "Oh, sounds like the firebending's back on." Which two of the reasons I like that: one, it's funny, obviously, but two, it also implies that she doesn't have the same level of inherent connection to be able to tell just by the eclipse having ended. You know, we said about Iroh and Ozai being able to tell just inherently without any indication physically. I like
wasn't
the
sure.
idea that
Because it's so instantaneous. I wasn't sure whether that was the case or if she realized it just.
it's certainly not clear, but I think that's how
Yeah.
they're playing it.
It can kind of be taken either way, and it
Yeah.
still makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
I definitely buy that she could be that attuned. You know,
yeah,
because it's not
100%.
like
So could
because
I,
you
yeah.
you never think as amazing as Ozai is, you never think what a spiritual man
No,
he
of
is.
course.
That's his son, you know what I mean? Like you don't think
Of
that.
course.
You know?
but either way, I think it plays, and
Yeah.
I like the note. And it's just a funny moment. It's, oh, sounds like the firebending's back on. Boom.
Mhm. Which leads us into the retreat.
Yes, yeah, which is you know, it's well done. It's sad. It's the fact they have to leave all of these people behind. A particular note: the guy who steps through and goes, "Oh, I believe I have some experience with Fire Nation prisons. You know, I just got out a few months ago, but never mind." You know, this is a loss that they're having to pay for, and I like Aang's moment where he's saying, "Thank you all for being so brave. I'll make it up to you." You know, he's respecting
the moment
sacrifice.
It's more hopeful than it probably really should be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
considering the note that book 2 ends on, this is like, we're still hopeful.
Yeah,
and
we'll rally,
hey,
and it's like
we're only halfway
this
through
is
the season,
this
boys.
was kind of
Fight
it.
another
Yeah,
day. Yeah.
I'll agree with that. It was a bit.
Yeah.
It was a bit quick. They kind of just the turnaround from "we must do this" to "well, see ya" and flying off. It was very much a compressed scene. Because, like I said, this is their one shot of winning, as far as they're aware. Being stomped into the ground by their own failure. You know, so twofold failure.
I feel like Piando's off to the side, like, okay, so you guys done with this yet?
Yeah.
Come on, come my way. Come, let's talk. Let's wait. You know. But because it's not like it was a dumb plan from their perspective.
No,
it's
it was
like,
it was solid.
try. You know, I guess if it works out, great. But you know,
get another opportunity.
It was never going to be a better time to do it, you know. So you can't blame them for it, and they had a good shot. I wondered at how few forces they brought with them, but aside from the fact that they can't do scale in a show like that, it was a good moment. It was enough, you know. I like the fact that they had the time for Aang to give that speech, because you know they are sacrificing themselves on the altar of his failure from their perspective, you know. So it's right that he acknowledges that.
Kind of goes back to those themes again of like, you know, letting it affect you, but not like being crushed by it. You know, it's kind of like, again, similar with Sokka. He doesn't let it like keep him from doing what needs to be done, sort of thing. Big theme in these episodes.
And the funny thing is as well, most of them anyway, the big leaders are only prisoners for like 5 days. It's really not a long time. They don't even arrive at the prison until after they'd already taken.
I never really thought about it.
Yeah,
like,
was it that quick? Yeah.
The implication is clear that it's not. But in terms of what they're showing on screen and the way they're treating it can't be more than like 3 weeks from purely what we see on screen.
Yeah,
it has to be longer thematically, but
yeah.
Although,
well, I mean, time in this show has always been kind of wonky, so
yeah, it is a bit like, because they're delivering Hakoda to the Boiling Rock. I
Yeah,
guess it
they
could be
beat him to the
prison
prison,
transfer, and
so
yeah,
it's that quick.
but it can't be though, because they've been on. You know what I mean? Aang went
Yeah.
and met the dragons and all that. It's been a few days. It's definitely been. They lost sight of the time, or he
Yeah.
was in prison somewhere else, and they transferred him. I think is also the idea, so that can buy some time. But yeah, it is. It's not
It
very
is
long.
amusing.
Maybe you shouldn't put
all this stuff
Firebenders
you were
in a
talking about.
cage. No, just-
Yeah, all
and
this
nothing
stuff
else.
we're talking about. All this stuff we're talking about with Aang, you know, still being in like this good headspace. He's pretty much fully realized as a character at this point, aside
Yeah.
from the I don't want to firebend again, and I don't want to kill him, even though I should, or like, you know, unless I meet a giant lion turtle, I'll have to.
It always
you know what I mean?
amuses me, and we'll get to it obviously
Yeah.
when we get to the finale. But how late that occurs to him, he's like, "Oh yeah, I should probably be worried about that." it's not. It's almost obviously he's been thinking about it before then, but until Zuko points it out, he's like, "Oh yeah, problem."
Yeah, because in my head, I think of the Melon Lord situation as being part of this ramp up, but it's not. You know,
Yeah.
that's part of later. Yeah. So,
It was very
anyway,
amusing. But yeah, that's this two parts basically. It kind of sets up the trajectory for the rest of the season, and some pretty great episodes to follow. And it's a fantastic mid-season finale by itself.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that stands out in the memory of most people who watch the show. You know, you look back on this 10 years in advance, and you've only seen it once. This is one of the things you'll remember as being a pretty significant deal, especially for a young
very
audience,
much
because
very
it's
much intended to be a big shift in the tonal of the story. So yeah,
and so different from the style of most shows of its time as well. If you're a young viewer who hasn't watched that much stuff and has that much exposure to this kind of story, it's new. You know, you don't often get this kind of failure after so much build up in a story. So I thought it was very cool, very effective. And
I mean,
a favorite.
it is like you knew it was like a mid-season thing, right? You know, so but I mean, I guess if you're like really young, like you're saying, you wouldn't necessarily know. But it's what it finally is okay. Finally, Zuko's got his shit together, because he was. We thought this was going to happen half a season ago, and it almost did, but oh no,
Yeah.
like it didn't. You know, so it's finally that release. You know, and then it's okay. Where do we go from here? But yeah,
You know,
really solid. It's probably as good as it is because the show in general is so good. I don't really count it among my favorite episodes, but very solid, very pivotal. Some great singular moments, but there are episodes, many episodes that I enjoyed quite a bit more than this on a personal level.
Yeah, similar. I mean, you know, very action centric, but when the character beats land, they land really well. So there is something you could get out of this, you know, beyond just the, you know, invasion itself, which is always nice to see.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And
with that said, that's everything for this two-parter. I am Callan, and I still don't have an outro.
Well, this is Matt. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.
Evanova 95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Goodbye.